Very, very good morning. I'll keep this conversation both in Tamil and English, so so that which I am comfortable. So we will keep uh, in both languages. Uh, Before we get into what is happening in India from an economical perspective, பொருளாதார அடிப்படையில் like இந்தியாவில் என்ன நடக்குது, what are the kind of jobs which are getting generated, what are the new businesses country is creating. அதுக்குள்ள போறதுக்கு முன்னாடி like I just want to tell you that we need to understand little bit of basic economics. நீங்க ஒரு இன்ஜினியரிங் ஸ்டூடெண்ட், சயின்ஸ் ஸ்டூடெண்ட் இருந்து வந்திருந்தா கூட பொருளாதாரமும் வரலாறும் தெரிவது I think மிக மிக முக்கியம். ஸோ அந்த அடிப்படையின் பேரில் நான் வந்து I will briefly touch upon what is basic economics, what are the basic terminology which I will use in the next I think 45 minutes to 60 minutes. நம்ம இது ஒரு இன்டராக்டிவ் செஷனா இல்லாதத காரணனால சில விஷயங்களை நான் திருப்பி திருப்பி சொல்ற மாதிரி இருந்தா கூட அது உங்களுடைய பயனுக்காக மட்டுமே. Don't misunderstand saying that I'm repeating everything like I think many times, just to make sure that everyone understands. With that, I think I'll begin my session. So I think I have a small presentation which I put together. I'll just take it now, 1 minute. I think I'm sure you would be able to see this. I want to start off with basic economics, which is the fundamental for any country to produce jobs, produce well-being for their citizens. So ரொம்ப ஒரு அடிப்படையான விஷயம் தான் I want to begin with. I want to introduce few terminologies. One is GDP. What is GDP? What is a gross domestic product? So that is more important for us. என்ன காரணத்தினால அதை வந்து நான் சொல்ல விரும்புறேன் அப்படின்னா, இந்த ஜிடிபிங்கிறது ஒரு 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 கலோக்கியல் டேர்ம்ஸ்ல நான் சொல்லணும்னா, ஒரு ஒரு வழக்கு தமிழ்லையோ ஒரு வழக்கு ஆங்கிலத்திலேயோ சொல்லணும்னா, ஒரு கண்ட்ரி வந்து ஒரு நாடு வந்து எவ்வளவு செழிப்பா இருக்கு. இட் இஸ் இட்ஸ் a question of like how wealthy we are, how good we are. Okay, is this person wealthy? Like I think is he doing well? அப்படிங்கிற அசஸ் பண்ற ஒரு பேராமீட்டர் தான் ஜிடிபி. ஜிடிபிங்கிறது கிராஸ் டொமஸ்டிக் ப்ராடக்ட் அப்படிங்கிறாங்க. அது வந்து ஒரு பெரிய வித்த ஒன்றும் கிடையாது. இட்ஸ் லைக் இட்ஸ் பேசிக்லி லைக் ஒரு பொருளாதாரத்துல in an economic like you've got three things which are major contributors. One, agriculture, விவசாயம். Two, manufacturing. Three, services. அக்ரிகல்ச்சரை பத்தி நான் உங்களுக்கு சொல்லணும் தேவையில்லை. வாட் எவர் கெட்ஸ் ப்ரொடியூஸ்ட் இன் அக்ரிகல்ச்சர், அதோட உற்பத்தி எவ்வளவு அப்படிங்கிறது அக்ரிகல்ச்சர் செக்டர். மேனுஃபேக்சரிங், which is like production of all goods, engineering goods, like I think consumer உங்களுடைய டிவி, ஃப்ரிட்ஜ், டூ வீலர், லைக் டூத் பேஸ்ட், எல்லா மேனுஃபேக்சரிங். அது செகண்ட். மேனுஃபேக்சரிங் ஆஃப் பேசிக் திங்ஸ் as well as all the engineering things, manufacturing as a sector. அது வந்து ரெண்டாவது செக்டர் லைக் I think in the economy. The third is services. சர்வீசஸ் அப்படிங்கிறது வந்து ஒரு மெடிக்கல் சர்வீசஸ். ஏன்னா அங்கே எதுவும் பொருளை வைக்கல, அவங்களுடைய சர்வீசஸ் மட்டும் தான் வைக்கிறாங்க, அவங்களுடைய சேவையை மட்டும். மெடிக்கல், ஆடிட்டிங், ஐடி. ஐடியில் நீங்கள் என்ன பொருள் விற்கிறீங்க? ப்ராடக்ட் விர்ச்சுவலாக விற்கீங்க, பட் இருந்தால் கூட உங்களுடைய சர்வீசஸ் லைக் ஐ திங்க் கோடிங் எழுதுறது, லைக் ஒரு டேட்டா சயின்ஸ் பண்ணுறது, இதெல்லாம் வந்து சர்வீசஸ் செக்டரில் வரும். இது வந்து இந்த டூரிசத்துல என்ன பொருள் இருக்கு? ஒருத்தர் வந்து பார்க்க வர்றாரு அப்படின்னா, ஒரு இடத்துக்கு வர்றாரு, ஒரு கோயிலுக்கு போகணும் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறாரு, இல்ல ஒரு கன்னியாகுமரியை போய் பார்க்கணும்னு நினைக்கிறாரு, இல்ல கொடைக்கானல் போய் பார்க்கணும் அப்படின்னு நினைக்கிறாருன்னா, அது வந்து இட்ஸ் சர்வீசஸ். அது அந்த டூரிசத்தை பேக்கேஜ் பண்றவங்க, அங்க போனா ஒரு ஹோட்டல்ல ரூம் கொடுக்குறவங்க, அவங்க எந்த ஒரு பொருளையும் விற்கிறது கிடையாது, அவங்க வந்து தங்குறதுக்கு இடம் செய்யுது. ஸோ த்ரீ மேஜர் செக்டர்ஸ் லைக் ஐ திங்க் இன் அன் எக்கனாமி: அக்ரிகல்ச்சர், மேனுஃபேக்சரிங், சர்வீசஸ். இந்த மூணு செக்டர்ஸோட உற்பத்தி திறன், வாட் எவர் ஹஸ் பீன் ப்ரொடியூஸ்ட் இன் ரூபி டேர்ம்ஸ் ஆர் டாலர் டேர்ம்ஸ். அதாவது அக்ரிகல்ச்சர்ல நான் இப்போ என்னையவே ஒரு உதாரணமா எடுத்துக்கலாம். நான் வந்து ஒரு I would say, if you take me myself as an experience, let's say like I make 1 lakh rupee as an income. So like this, like you add every like I think income of the country in these three sectors. which is agriculture, manufacturing, and services. You add up all the income which is generated by these three sectors, and collectively, what comes as a product, it's called gross domestic product. So, which is what the country is measured in terms of economics. So that is the most important basic parameter of an economics. Second, if the country is doing so well, let's say like I think my GDP is so much, there could be a situation, there is a 1 rupee GDP or 100 rupees GDP, that there are 100,000 people. So that what gets shared with individual people is actually like I think becomes a smaller number. So, you talked about like I think the wealthiness of the country, then you come to the wealthiness of individuals. That is called per capita income. It's called like I think the second factor you could see, like I think it's called per capita income. This is nothing but you add up all the all the like I think all the producers of like I think agriculture, manufacturing, services, and divide it by the number of people in that country, which decides like I think how wealthy the individuals in that country also. So one is GDP, which is at the national level, and the second, which is the per capita income, like which is at the individual level, how much it is going to for them. So that's the second factor. I think these two things, like I think I'll keep using it in the entire, like I think next 1 hour. So I think you should be, spending. I'll spend a minute more. GDP is nothing but addition of all the value which has been produced in three sectors: agriculture, manufacturing, and services. Per capita income is nothing but GDP divided by the population, which means like I think whatever the country has earned, how much like per individual the country has like I think produced, which means like I think there is a wealthiness at the individual level. That's an assessment. Okay, so these are the two parameters. I've also listed down another 4 parameters because I talked about basic economics. I thought I'll spend a little more time in terms of like I think spending this time on these are the 4 things which I've listed out. One is deficit, fiscal deficit. What is a fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit is nothing but the difference between what the government earns and how much it spends. So, the immediate question is like, where does government earn? Okay, the government earns from taxes, which comes from GST, income tax. It comes from duties, which is like on petroleum, alcohol, and everything. So there is a tax on everything in this country. GST, income tax, both at the for the corporates as well as the individuals. Country collects all these taxes and then commits itself to spend as per the budget. But we always spend more than like I think what we earn. The idea is that I think if I spend more in subsequent years, I will collect more tax, and hence like I think my deficit will be financed in the next few years. It's basically like I think nothing but the individual buying on a EMI, saying that I am not able to buy a car today, but I would buy a car like I think which in installments with 5 years. So I know over a period of 5 years I will be able to pay. Hence, I will buy the car today. So that is what is a deficit, is fiscal deficit. The reason is, now there is I'm sure like some of you are, very intelligent people. You got admissions to Tyagaraja. I'm sure like you're all very intelligent students. You would be wondering, why not print more money and give it to everyone? Because like people are not earning because of this pandemic, because of COVID-19. But that's not as simple as that. Government has to earn and government has to spend. Money is not made in thin air. Money is made out of your work, my work, and everyone's work. So, and that's why this fiscal deficit becomes an important component to be understood. Okay. That's from the government side. Now comes, business valuation. A business valuation is why this is important. Let's say like I think what is the value of gold today. If you want to buy 1 sovereign of gold, you walk into any shop, they will tell you the value. How it is arrived at? there is a production of gold. There are people who are buying it, and both demand and supply. So how much is produced and how much is being sold, they arrive at a meeting point, and then the value gets decided. The same is true for a real estate also. Let's say, like I think in Madurai or Chennai, if you want to buy a place in central Madurai, it will cost more. You have to buy, you have to probably give more value. Maybe a 1 cent, maybe 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, I don't know. Maybe like in a village, it would be 1 cent would be 1 lakh rupee. That is the valuation of that real estate. The value of a property or a value of a, like gold or value of an agriculture commodity. Yeah, if you take tomato, it is 20 rupees per kg or 5 rupees per kg. So that is the value of tomato or brinjals for that particular day. That's how real estate, that's how gold is defined. Now, you should understand when businesses are created, businesses also have value. For example, if you have got Infosys, Infosys has got a value. If you've got TCS, TCS has got a value. Now, just think it like this, like the way you want to buy gold, like the way you want to buy real estate. Someone decides, I want to buy Infosys, or someone decides, I want to buy TCS, or someone wants to buy, let's say, Tata Motors. Okay, you can buy it because, who's stopping you from buying it if you have the money? But there would be a value for that company. So that is called a business valuation. You should understand this because like you would keep hearing this as you grow older, as you get into profession, you would know what is the value of the business which you are working in. Basically, like your business valuation is what creates wealth. Now, we will talk about this, like why America is so wealthy or why China is so wealthy based on like how their businesses which have been created have become much more valued, and hence like I think how those countries are more prosperous than other countries. So to that extent, your business valuation is very, very important. It is very simple, like the way you buy real estate, like the way you buy any vegetable, like the way you buy gold. If you want to buy a business, and that is the value of a business, it's called business valuation. Just keep this like I think as an important factor, because like the way I said, GDP, per capita income, business valuation plays an important role for our subsequent slides, subsequent presentation. Then I want to talk about two things. This is more the general knowledge perspective for everyone, all students. We import something, we also export something. What is that we import? We don't produce oil. We don't produce oil at all. Okay, we have like I think we have domestic capacity in terms of producing petrol as well as diesel and other things. But the point is, you don't produce enough for meeting our Indian supplies. So you import petrol, which is like in the form petrol and diesel in the form of crude oil. It comes to you from Middle Eastern countries, like US also produces, Russia produces. So that's the number one import. That is the number one in the country. Your maximum bill for import goes to oil. Then you've got like gold, other equipments like medical apparatus, fertilizers. Like these are all things which you import. It is not that you are producing it here, but you produce, but you still need more. Or if you're producing, your prices are higher, and hence, like I think we go ahead and import. Just to tell you, we would have heard this palm oil, which is used for all cooking and everything. Not a single drop of palm oil is produced in India. Not even a single drop of palm oil is produced in India. Palm oil is produced in East Asian countries, Southeast Asian countries. The biggest in palm oil is Malaysia, Indonesia, and the countries around that. So not even one drop of palm oil is like I think produced in India. You need to understand this because when you import, you have to pay them in dollars outside. Okay, you have to make money by exporting something so that you can import. Exports. What are we export? Okay, number one exports today is IT services. because you people go, you people work on projects across the world. So you build them, so they pay you. So first export of services, like I think is like number one exports is information technology. Then we export two-wheelers, we export four-wheelers, we export pharmaceuticals. Arunda, like you would have heard, this COVID-19, there is something called hydroxychloroquine, which you would have read in papers. Like I'm sure, like if not read in papers, like your generation is very good in terms of WhatsApp University. You also tend to believe whatever comes in WhatsApp University, but like I don't want to blame that. Hydroxychloroquine, we are the largest producer. Hydroxychloroquine is used for, like I think, treatment for COVID-19. It saves lots of people, and and we are the largest. We can produce 3 crore tablets like in a week if you want it. India has given to 128 countries in the last 60 days, including America, including like all the developed countries. They have taken pharmaceutical from us. So that is our, like I think, one of our important exports. Of course, like others are there. You've got clothing, like textiles, apparel in Tirupur. You would have seen all your t-shirts, your shirts, trousers, getting stitched in Tirupur, like near Bombay, in near Delhi, and it is going. Also, your handicrafts, good handicrafts are being made in India and they get exported. So this is important for you to know what this country is all about. So I just want to recap on basic economics because I want to spend more time here. GDP, the wealth of the country, which is like, like your thermometer. This is GDP is the thermometer for like how good is the country, how wealthy the country is. Per capita income, within that country, how good the individuals are being taken care. That's what, like I think, the per capita income is. Business valuation, like the way you buy any asset. If you want to buy Tata or Infosys, like I think, what is the money you have to buy? You have to pay. That's called business valuation. The rest is for more for your information than anything else. So with this, I would like to move to the next slide. I think just watch it. Hope it is visible. This is on. I've plotted this to see how India has done well, because I assume that most of you are born after 2000, or either on, like maybe I think 2020. I don't think I am told you are either first year student or second year student. So I'm sure most of you, 95, 97% of you, 70% of the students would have born either in 2000 or after 2000. So I want you to see how India has grown in terms of both GDP as well as per capita income. What I said on GDP, it is the wealth of the country. Okay, so it has moved from, like I think 2 trillion to 12 trillion. And like in per capita income, individual income, household income, like I think has moved from $2,000 to $9,000. But there is a small catch. There is a small catch. There is another term which I would introduce. Okay, so there is a term called PPP. Have you seen that? Like I think in the slide, it is in the bottom of the slide. It's called PPP. This is something called purchase power parity. If you want to note it down, I would like to repeat it again. Purchase power parity. The reason I'm saying this is important, you would have heard from your friends or like I think your relatives who are living outside the country. If I go to Singapore, I have to pay some 170 rupees for a dosa or 200 rupees for a dosa. For a short distance, of taxi, I pay 500 rupees, because what you do, you convert what you pay in dollars to rupee. Singapore Pona, like you would pay it in Singapore dollars, and like you would think as if, like I think if this is the same expense in India, how cheap it would be. If you go to US, like you will do the same thing. You would think that like I'm paying so much, but in India I would get it very cheap. So what does it mean? What is 100 rupees worth in India is only 20 rupees. You need only 20 rupees for that. So when you compare, like I think countries, you also need to adjust it for purchase power parity. I might have 1,000 rupees, but like I would be able to spend equivalent of 5,000 rupees either in Singapore or like in United States of America. So what I have given you in terms of growth is actually like mapping it on purchase power parity. I would like to repeat again, purchase power parity is nothing but if I had to pay X sum in outside the country, how much is that I would have got it within the country. So that is what it's called purchase power parity. So this is like, I think, you see from the day you are born, you're only seeing the country going up, 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 up. So like, if there is one generation which has been so blessed, so lucky, to born with, mobile phones, like, every gadget one could ask for, in the wonderful phase of industrialization, wonderful phase of innovation. I think, this is the best you are seeing the best of this country from like I think 2000 onwards. So you are born lucky, you're born with silver spoon, and like you also brought luck and charm to this country, and country is doing well from where it is. I'm not necessarily saying this government has done well, that government has done well, every government has done well, every citizen of this country has done well, every alumni of you, alumni from Tyagaraja College has also worked towards that to make this country growing. So we should all be proud of it. So this is how like India has played out in the last 20 years. Let me go to the next slide. Okay. Can I? Yeah. Are you able to see this? I hope you guys are able to see this. You guys are able to see it? So I think, is that okay? Okay, now let me go to the next slide. So I think, the next slide has got, I want to talk about what's happening in India. What is today's India's position? So there are a lot of terminologies, but I will try and make sure I think it is understandable for you. Okay. India is the fastest growing trillion-dollar economy in the world and fifth largest overall. We are the fifth largest in terms of economy, which is measured in terms of GDP. We are the fifth largest in the world. Fifth largest. Okay. But what was 2019-20, like I think in terms of GDP, yeah, $2.94 trillion. Okay, I would give it as a homework for you. Go and see how much is $1 trillion. I want everyone to write how many zeros are there and also convert that into rupee and see how big we are. We should be proud of, like, I think, this country. India has become the fifth largest economy in 2019. Last year, we became the fifth largest. We were seventh largest to begin with in 2019. We overtook France and the United Kingdom to become the fifth largest economy in the world. I talked about purchase power parity. If you apply the purchase power parity, we are the third largest economy in the world. And once you apply the purchase power parity, this 2.94 trillion becomes 11.33 trillion, which puts us behind two countries in the world. One is US, the other one is China, with whom we have a problem in the morning, I think from yesterday and today, and we are the third largest. Now you would know why we have a problem with China, because it's a question of two powerful neighbors trying to find out who will do better in the coming years. Like any other two competitors, it's part of life. I think we should move on by hearing the news and see what best we can do. Okay. Now I want to come to the next important thing. I want to spend I think couple of minutes, okay, which is ease of doing business. Okay. So like the way you would say your ability to order let's say any book or any item on Amazon, Flipkart, life has become so easy. You can at the click of the button, you can get the goods delivered at your home. So I think it has become far, far easier. So like that, all countries in the world are measured in terms of how easy to do business in that country. So basically, like they say, we would assess the country whether it is good for doing business. Okay, like if I go and set up a business, like whether it is easy for us to do business. It has got many parameters. I'll tell you like few parameters. One is like how fast you can register a company, how fast you can get a license, how fast you can get all the government clearances. All these things, like I think, become very important to decide how easy to start a business in that country. India, just to tell you, like I think if you have noticed that, we have moved to, I think this year, I think if I'm right, we have moved to 43, I think. Just hold on, I have a problem. Yes, so we have become, we were 142 in 2014, and last year we have become 63. Okay, there are two countries like which are nearer to India, not so nearer, but they are nearer to India. One is Singapore, the other one is Hong Kong. They are number 1 and 2. Incidentally, Hong Kong is also part of China. So in a way, you can say China's one part is the number 1 in the world for ease of doing business, which means like anyone can walk into that country, set up a business and start doing business. It doesn't look at anything. It does only look at reward, the people who got talent and who can do business. Okay. So the other indicator, which is like very important, is that how much money we get from outside of the country to Indian businesses. That's called FDI. Okay, if you want to note it down, like you can note it down. It's called FDI. FDI is nothing but foreign direct investment. It's basically a measure which says on Indian businesses how much money has come from outside of the country. Okay, so we are the 11th in the world. In terms of in terms of confidence, which means there is there are investors who are outside of the country who want to invest in India. In terms of confidence, we are 11th. Within the emerging markets, what we call it as emerging markets is there are developed countries like US, UK, Germany, France, China, and we are still in an emerging country. We are the second. So I think that's a very, very important thing, which means basically people are saying we are more confident about India. We are more confident about India's growth. We are more confident about Indian businesses. We are more confident about Indian employees, their talent, their engineering talent, everything. So that's what it results in. It is not some mere index which you would see and go home. It's a reflection of, like, I think what this country has done in the last 30 years. Okay. This is too technical for you, but I just want to tell you, like, I think, between domestic investors and foreign investors in the last 1 year, only in stock market, I think, I don't want to spend more time, but I think this is more a piece of information for you. There is $20 billion which has come in the year 2019, which is 1.43 lakh crores. So I think this is just a piece of information. You can forget it. But what is more important for you is that we are the fastest growing $1 trillion economy. We are the third largest in terms of purchase power parity. Our ranking in terms of doing business easy, like that is going up. And we are getting a lot more money than any other country. Probably the second country in terms of getting outside investors money, because we don't have enough money in this country. We also need money from outsiders. Let me move to the next one. Investments in the manufacturing sector for last year alone, it's $500 billion. Just to tell you, $1 billion is about 7,500 crores as we speak now. So I would leave it to you to multiply and see, like in manufacturing sector alone, how much investments have happened last year. India is expected to become 5th largest manufacturing country. We will become the 5th largest manufacturing country by the end of 2020, which is by, let's say, December 2020 or by March 2021, we would become the 5th largest manufacturing country, irrespective of COVID-19 or any other disease like which is going to come. Okay, so we will become the 5th largest like in the world. India is also home for 45 million, which is like, just to tell you, 4.5 crores of small businesses. There are 4.5 crores of small businesses across India. That SMB is called small and medium businesses. The reason I'm saying this is which consume $80 billion in digital services. What I mean is like the digital banking, your digital commercial transactions, everything which is becoming digital, like the small businesses alone, which is 4.5 crores like in India of unit. What I mean is there are 4.5 crores of small business units, which could be Pote, Saravana stores, Aniket Capital, Tyaraja Mills is a larger company. I'm just saying like all small businesses which you see, tile shop, everything put together, we have got 4.5 crore businesses, small businesses, and we have got $80 billion in terms of digital services, which is very, very important. I will connect this I think little later. Okay. So what is what is the problem? I'm sure we will have a problem, all right? So one of the problems in India is that, I think this is not there in the slide, but I can talk, is that your agriculture contributes only 15 or 17% of the total 100 rupees which we produce as GDP. But it employs 55% of people, okay, which is not a good idea. If you've got 17 rupees of income coming from one area, and 55% of your people are splitting that income, actually then what happens? Your farmers would be poor. That's what is happening in this country. So there are two ways. I think one is to move the farmers, I think educate them, skill them, and move them to manufacturing and services sector, so that I think they would be able to participate in other sectors of the economy, which is very, very important. So one of the goals which the country has set now, thanks to COVID-19 and the way China has got issues with other countries in the world, this dream is realistic, which is what they are trying to say. Today, I think 30 rupees is coming from out of 100 rupees of GDP, 30% is coming from manufacturing. India has set a goal by 2030, 50% of our GDP has to come from manufacturing. This is very important because we are a very, very young population. So we need more people, both skilled and unskilled. You are skilled guys. There are a lot of people who have dropped out at 10th standard, 9th standard, 12th standard. Those people have to get employed. If they have to get employed, they can go to manufacturing. So yeah, it is important for the country that I think we get more manufacturing done in the next 10 years, so that a lot of our young people can start working, your ITIs, diplomas, even people, school dropouts can start working in manufacturing industry. That is a success of China. And that is something India is wanting to replicate. So that's the goal, I think, which we are in. So people who are in mechanical engineering, be rest assured, I think there will be a lot of government support if you are wanting to start any manufacturing unit. Maybe once you are out, and let's say I think after 5 years of working, you want to start a business, there will be lots of support from the government, as well as the market would do very well. So I think just keep this. I think probably 10 years later, we can review this and see where we are. Right? The other thing which is important is India records more than 3 billion digital transactions in a month. 3 billion. So I think 3 billion, 300 crores of transactions happen digitally in India. You would know what is UPI, banking transaction, your e-commerce transaction, which used to be I think in 2006-07. There used to be nothing in this country in terms of hardly infrastructure. There was no mobile phone, smartphone. There was no not a good connection of I think data. Now there is Jio, there is Airtel, there is BSNL. The fastest data speed is too good, and you've got information security which has gone up leaps and bounds. And the result is today you got 3 billion digital transactions in a month. I'll tell you why it is important. Just come to the next line. The next line talks about more than 80% of Indian adults now hold bank accounts. So this was 36% in 2011. I think this is one of the flagship schemes of this government. They said whatever happens, we will go ahead and open anyone and everyone a bank account. It is important because you would have understood now the government has transferred 1,50,000 crores in the last 3 months to farmers, to poor people in the villages, others like who are ration card holders at a particular level. They've directly transferred the money by opening the account and through digital transactions. So that's the power of I think your digital transaction. Digital transaction combined with bank accounts, combined with your Aadhaar, it's the most powerful thing which India has seen in the last 10, 12 years. So I think that's the landscape of India. I just want to know, I think, should we take some questions or should we take the questions later? So I think, Doctor, Principal.
Yeah, Bala, actually, we are collecting the questions from the students.
Okay.
So at the end of the session, we'll have it.
Okay, good. So I think I just want to make sure, I think, how we do that. So
yeah.
I think that's it. So
yeah, okay.
And okay.
Yes, Bala.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, what is a startup? I think what is a startup? Startup is the easiest thing. Okay. If you go and start a business, it's called a startup. That's it. There is no other definition for a startup. But it's easier said than done. The reason I'm saying this is that, most of you, like the way when I was studying at homes, we were told, you go to Tyagaraja Engineering College, get your degree, and they would give you a good placement, go and work for someone. There is nothing wrong in it. I think I'm not wanting to demean or degrade anyone. Employment as a professional is a very good thing. But culturally, we are told, I think, especially down south as well as in Tamil Nadu, that I think business is very risky. I think let's settle down a job. Let's not do anything more than that. Let's not take risk. But if everyone goes and works, then who will create the jobs? Who will start the businesses? Who will create businesses? Who will employ people? So that's the most important component of India. Correct? Component of any economy for that matter. So I think, so to simply define, anyone who starts up with a bright idea or a non so bright idea, anyone who starts a business, it's called a startup. In a way, we have become a startup nation. The reason I'm saying is there are a lot more young people like you are more confident because you have seen a lot more growth in your life. You are born in a time when India is doing really well. India is more confident. You would have seen the graphs which I have shown. So there are young people are a lot more confident than I think what we were. I think when we graduated in '91, if we had to, we got 4 jobs in campus placement out of 400 people. I think we had 300 people, 300 people, and four of them got placed, and all of us came to Chennai, Bangalore, stayed in small hostels, and then started our career with 800 rupees salary and 700 rupees salary. Maybe it is worth today 5,000 rupees or 10,000 rupees, but so that was the struggle for I think the country. The reason is you didn't have enough businesses. Your economy was not doing well. You didn't have enough businesses which can employ the talented engineers. But if you look at it today, you've got, India has become a country of startup nation. I think let me read it out for you. 10,000 startups have happened in the last 5 years. Last year alone, 1,300 startups have happened. These are all registered startups. I think there might have been n number of other companies. Let's say someone opened a tile showroom, someone opened a small two-wheeler mechanic. So I'm not counting those. I'm counting this as more in the new age areas, which I will show it to you. There are about 10,000 companies which have happened, which have been funded by someone, which has been where not only the business starter has given money, others have also contributed to them, saying that you start the business. I've taken only those. There are 10,000 startups last year alone, 1,300 startups. Okay. Now let me also define what is a unicorn. Okay. The 7 unicorns added in 2019. So I want to spend a minute time in terms of what is a unicorn. The reason I'm saying this is Did I talk about business valuation? Like the way we value real estate, gold. You recollect what I said? Gold, real estate, you pay a price and get that particular piece of land. So business valuation, if the business valuation of a company, let's say like if someone has to buy a company, if they have to pay 7,500 crores, let me repeat it again, it is not 7,500 rupees, 7,500 crores, which is $1 billion. If the business is worthy of $1 billion in terms of value, then it is called unicorn. Okay. So let me go back to the slide again. So what does the slide say? In the year 2019 alone, 7 companies which have been started in the last 7-8 years have become worthy of 7,500 crores. Let's say if someone wants to buy that company, they have to put 7,500 crores minimum to buy that company. So, I think it's huge because I think in the next slides it's coming. So, it will tell you why you are getting jobs, why your campus placement is good. I will talk about that, like I think in the next few slides, but you just understand from the companies which have been started in the last 7-10 years, for the year of 2019 alone, 7 companies have been valued more than $1 billion. Totally, 24 companies in the last 7-8 years have become more than $1 billion valued companies. This is very, very important for you to understand. So someone like if you start a business, you can realistically become a billionaire if you own the company fully. If you own the company fully, like you can become a billionaire, like the way Infosys, TCS, some of these companies have become. The third point, India startup ecosystem. Okay, like we never had a strong ecosystem, like I think till about 2007-8, and like successive governments have done well. So we become the third largest, like in terms of the ecosystem. Ecosystem means people who can help the new businesses, people who can help with money, help with advice, mentorship, like the way we have got the Tyagaraja Business Incubator. There was something which we set up, like I think some 6-7 years back, if I'm right. Like, so your businesses get incubated. Previously, when we studied, there was nothing like that. Today, if I want to start a business, I can come to Tyagaraja Business Incubation Center and say, like, give me 4 seats, I can start working. And then I work out a deal with Incubation Center and start the business. This was never the case. So there are, like, I think, in the world, there are, like, I think only 5 countries you can think of as startup nations. America, by far. Every university there produces business. Would you believe Facebook born out of university? Tesla born out of, all these big companies, like if you have, like, I think they all started from like university student ideas. You got China, which is big, India, and United Kingdom, which is England. And Israel is one of the, one of the best countries, like when it comes to startup. They are the #1 in terms of innovation and science. The drip irrigation, which is used in agriculture, like if some of you come from agriculture family, was invented by them because they demonstrated to the world in deserts, in Palaivanatla, how they can do agriculture. It was demonstrated by Israel. So I think, if you don't have water, better use drip irrigation. So today, Indian government gives subsidies for drip irrigation in agriculture sector. And that's like, I think, innovation which was done by Israel. So I think these are the 5 countries to watch out for. So we are the one among them. Okay, now I think there is another term like which I would introduce, which is venture capital. Okay, so venture capital, angel fund, all these things, what do? We look at bright new ideas, we look at bright people and see whether they can execute the ideas which they are talking, whether they can execute their businesses. Then we say, this is your business, this business is worth so much, why don't you give me 10% of that, 20% of that? I will give you money for you to operate and make the company even more bigger. So that is called venture capital or an angel fund. This is not a loan. Please understand, this is not a loan. You don't need to repay. Instead of taking a loan, what you are saying is like you are selling part of your company. Saying that, okay, my company is worth 100 rupees, you give me 10 rupees. With that, I will make my company worth 200 rupees because I will do more things. So like that, like what gets invested in the company as shares is called venture capital, which is the early stage, which is like small companies, starting up companies, called venture capital and angel fund. Last year alone, Indian venture capital industry and angel funds and everyone put together, $10 billion has gone into startups. So just want to tell you, it's 75,000 crores in Indian rupee value. And this is 55% more than what was invested in 2018. So I think if in 2018 it was 5 billion, in 2019 it is 10 billion. This 10 billion, I think it's possible that 4-5 billion has gone to bigger companies like maybe a Flipkart or I think a Baiju or someone. But even then, I think this money which is chasing the country, which is what I said, from a foreign direct investment, the money which is coming from outside of the country, how they are interested in India is also getting demonstrated. Or even local people like us, we look at it and say okay, this is a good business. Let's invest on this person. Let's invest on this business. Collectively, we have the new businesses have got last year alone 75,000 crores of new investments. So when government says I think 1,50,000 crores, 3 lakh crores, don't go and write in WhatsApp, this is nonsense, or I think in Facebook. Please read, understand, and then comment. So India is a rich country. Indians may not be rich, but India is rich. Okay? Indians may not be rich enough. Because that we can talk about politics maybe one of the days when I'm there, but India is a rich country. About 80% of the VC investments, I think, out of the $10 billion which has happened, 80% of the money has gone into 4 sectors. Consumer tech, which is consumer tech is nothing but your food, like Swiggy, Zomato, anything which is to do with consumer, which is the person sells and the individual buys. It's not a company to company transaction. It's company to an individual transaction. So that's a consumer tech software. And I'm sure you would know companies like Zoho, which is in SaaS, I think, which is the second sector which has got money. The third sector is fintech, which is the industry which I belong to. The third is B2B commerce, which is one business selling to another business, which is different from consumer tech, which is consumer tech is Flipkart selling to you and your family. B2B is Walmart selling, Flipkart selling to, let's say, Tyagaraja Mills as a business to business. So that's a different business. These are the 4 sectors which have attracted more than 80% of the money last year. So this is I think, to give more about India. So with this, I think I will, I'll tell you why so many things are happening in India. You should understand why there is so many good things which is happening in India, and why this is happening. One of the reasons is we have got 50 crores of mobile internet subscribers, which is probably the second largest in the world. 50 crores of people using mobile internet, which is now data is very cheap. If you subscribe to Jio, Airtel, I think it's the cheapest. I think it's cheaper than having a couple of idlis now. You can have daily plan, a 3-day plan, 5-day plan. I think it's so, that's one of the reasons why India is doing well. 60% of the subscribers coming from, not from the metros, not from Chennai, Bangalore, Calcutta, Delhi. They come from all the cities other than these 4 cities. And our, tariff for data, as I said, is the cheapest in the world. We are by far the cheapest, which means we are, we are cheapest at least by, let's say if in other places, if it costs 10 rupees, it's not even 1 rupee here in India. And also we produce the cheapest smartphones in the world. And we are the largest, I think, mobile manufacturer in the world. In the last 2 years, I think we've become the largest manufacturer. So these are some of the things which you need to, I think, look at it. Just to talk about, I think, why places like Madurai, Coimbatore, Mysore, all this second tier cities. I don't want to use the word second grade cities other than the metro they have done very well. I think in the last I think a few years. Your mobile internet has gone up. I think my father is 82 years old. He's as comfortable as anyone in terms of using a mobile phone, and digital transaction, everything. Also, I think the land prices are still cheaper, in places like Madurai. Today, I think your Zoho has demonstrated that you can run a business from Tenkasi. For example, one of my businesses has got when we decided to set up the back office, we set it up in Madurai. We've got 100 people working out of Madurai for a financial services company. The only reason we set it up in Madurai is I was wanting to come and see my father and mother regularly. So we said, let's set it up in Madurai. There's no difference. The rental is like, I think, cheaper by 75%. If I pay 1 lakh rupee, I pay 25,000 rupees in Madurai. So, so I think the emergence of tier 2 cities is also like, I think, becoming more and more important for India's, emergence. And comes to like, I think what the government has done. Government has done many things, but, you may not be wanting to, you may not grasp all these things, but I can only tell you, if the country has to grow, government of all political parties recognize that new businesses, new startups have to emerge, and they have to emerge across all the places, not necessarily only in metro cities. And because of that particular intention and the policies have been defined in such a way that they encourage the new businesses. The money which has been committed on this is like, is unimaginable. Like I think it's in all the tax exemptions, like I think patent applications, everything put together. I think close to about 50,000 crores has been committed only for starting up new businesses in this country. So if some of you are brave, some of you can manage your highs and lows, which is like you're not so tense, like you can take life as it is. I think at some point in time you should give a shot at new businesses, and you should start businesses and start employing people also, and that's a great thing. And and you would wonder in COVID-19 days like how important it is to have a business. So that's about India. So the next 2 slides I want to talk about. I talked about how some of these companies have become valued more than $1 billion, correct? 7,500 crores. I've put out 2 slides in the next 2 slides, which are companies in the last 10 years or 9 years. The companies which have become valued more than $1 billion. Okay? I want you to look at this slide very carefully, both the slides very, very carefully. Then I would tell you my agony, like I think of why I am not so happy with these slides, these names. Okay, so I'm sure I don't know who all come to your campus and hire, but these are the 15 companies. Like I think I can say, do you recognize any companies? I'm sure you will recognize Mu Sigma, Flipkart, Paytm, Zomato, ShopClues, Byju's. I'm sure you would know it. Swiggy, Policy Bazaar, Oyo Rooms. These are the names. Like I think so for example, just to tell you, Mu Sigma, which is a data science company, is started in the year 2013. Today is like 7 years down the line. The company is worth $1.5 billion, which is the company today is worth about 11,500 crores. If someone has to buy the company, which happens all the time, don't worry. Like I think who would have this 11,500 crores? There are a lot of people, a lot of funds, like I think around the world, which are rich enough to buy such companies. Like they have to pay $1.5 billion to buy this company, which means how much revenue that company has to make. So that I think I leave it for another day because it's too much for you guys. Maybe a couple of years down the line, we can talk about that. The next slide, the same thing continues. Like I think these are the companies which have become $1 billion companies or more than $1 billion companies. Like I think in 2019 and 20. Can you recognize any name? I think I'm sure you would know Big Basket, BillDesk, Freshworks, which is a Chennai-based company, Nykaa, which all the girls would know. I think this is a it sells like all the women. I think I don't know the costumes or all the products which is related to the women beauty products which they sell. So these are the companies. So I think in a way, like I think 29 companies which I talked about, the last 9 years they've been created last 9 years and they've become $1 billion or more. So you see the potential of such companies. But I want to tell you, for every company which has succeeded, there are 10 which has not succeeded, which is part of life. Like not everyone is expected to get through. But I think if we make life very simple, that I think we can take risks and we can start companies. Okay, why I'm not happy with these 2 slides? I'll tell you. We should be ashamed. Just think out of those 29 companies, there is like, only one company of worth, or maybe two. I think Zoho and Freshworks are based out of Chennai or Tamil Nadu. There is nothing which is based out of Chennai. So we produce like very good engineers like in TC and other colleges. We sell them as slaves to Bangalore. We sell them as slaves to Delhi. We sell them as slaves to, sorry to use the word slaves, but I'm just like wanting to provoke you, instigate you, saying that like I think, how badly we are figuring out in terms of starting up new businesses. But like, people like and others, like I think I'm very small, but I think there are others. We are trying to see like how these things can be improved. Like I think how Chennai, and Tamil Nadu, Madurai can have more companies. But it's pathetic to see that like only one or two companies. Like Bangalore produces 40% of all the big companies, and Delhi produces 35%, and Chennai and like Bangalore is like 4.5 hours from Chennai, and we produce 3.5%, which is two companies out of this. So I think you should think for yourself. Even if you want to start something at some point in time, you can always come back to Madurai, Chennai, or wherever you are, and like you can start the businesses. Like I think you will have wonderful talent which is there in the state of Tamil Nadu when it comes to engineering and every other profession. So this is one sore point. So I leave it as a thought. How badly, like now you would know when like offers are made, why you are being sent to other places other than Chennai. Because there are not enough jobs which you have created in terms of new businesses. It's only the old businesses which are still recruiting and there in Chennai. All the new businesses have moved out of this place. Hence, like I think you are forced to move out of Madurai to all these places. Some of you might like Bangalore, but certainly, like I think as a born and brought up Madurai man as well as a Tamilian, I don't like this at all. If the same thing continues, I think Tamil Nadu could fall behind. I think people say a lot of Tamil pride and all those things. It can blow away like in the next few years. Not many. It takes only 5-7 years to blow away pride. So I think just keep this in mind. I just want to also talk about maybe next 5 minutes. Like I think I will want to wrap it up at 11:45. I want to talk about what are the new areas which are emerging in startups. Okay, so these are the new areas. Educational technology companies. Okay, what is this educational technology company? Baidu is a new company. So it teaches education through technology. Okay, exam preparations. So these are the sectors, subsectors like upskilling, vocational training. So educational technology company is one big thing. What are the skill sets required? I've mapped it for you to understand, because this is something you can frame it with you. Like if some of you students like want to take some certification courses other than your courses, you can look at the skill sets required here and say like in what are the sectors I can get a job, or like I think I can think of doing something. So these are the skill sets, and these are the sectors. So the sectors which are doing well is education tech, which is what the next big sectors would be. Financial technology, which is where like I am in, so which is like small business digitization, digital banking, UPI, and stuff like that. Healthcare, your mental wellness. I think it's unfortunate. Like I think to see a young man of 34 years committing suicide. I don't know why a young actor committed. So I think mental wellness for the first time in the country is like acknowledged as a problem. So I see, healthcare. Like I think you would have noticed a young startup company in Pune is producing this COVID-19 test kits. It's not anymore imported from China. There is an import from China and South Korea, but there is an Indian company which was started about 3 years back, 4 years back. It produces the COVID-19 test kits. So, just imagine if there was not such a business available, you would be depending on someone to go and even get the testing done, saying that there is COVID-19 for you or not, Corona is there or not. So, healthcare, like I think we see mental wellness, the rapid test kits, alternate, your intelligence AI-based diagnostics, which I think like they will all do well. Consumer companies, which is FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods. I want to take a second. Fast-moving consumer goods is nothing but your toothpaste, which is you use daily basis and you require it every 10 days, like toothpaste, soaps, like your shampoos, like your beauty creams and all those things. So that's also another, like I think, area in which will grow. personal wellness, Ayurvedic brands, personal hygiene, what are the skill sets required, chemical engineering, sales, marketing, you would need warehouse, the new sectors, space tech. So there will be a lot of, like, I think I can tell you, like, there will be at least 10 Indian companies will be sending satellites, private satellites, in the next 10 years. We have invested at least in two. So we think that, like, I think, we would be able to send satellites to the space from a private company, not necessarily has to come from ISRO. Obviously, government has to agree. So there is biorobotics, life sciences, like you would need skill sets of aeronautics, material science, biotechnology, those skills. And there is clean tech, which is like pollution related. I'm sure like young kids like you would be like more worried about, I think, what is the world like. I think our elder generation is living because of pollution, polluted rivers, polluted water, and everything. So there is a push for cleaner technology. That's why you see electric vehicles, EV is electric vehicles, smart grids. So you would have more and more clean technology companies emerging. So that's where I see mechanical engineering guys, electronics, material sciences, marketing. So those are the skill sets which is required. So just frame this and look at the sectors and, like, I think, start enhancing your skill sets. I'm sure like either you will start a business or you would end up working in those sectors. So that's, like, I think, this is something which is very important for you guys. So I think the last one, okay. I'm sure, like, I think none of you should be afraid of what's happening in Corona, COVID-19, because you're all young kids, like nothing is going to happen to you. But I just want to tell you, humankind is the most resilient race, I think, in the world. I think, I'll tell you why. Just look at how pandemics like this, like, I think, big diseases have happened in the past, and what is the kind of death toll, how many people have died in the past, and in spite of that, the world has moved forward. See, we are all martyrs. One day we will die. I think we don't have a choice. Like, I think either there is a fear or there is no fear. We will all die. I think we have no choice. We are all martyrs. We will live for some time in this world and we will go. Okay, but the point is, like, we lead an impactful life and, like, we make it count when we are here. Just to tell you, what are the other pandemics which have happened in the past? 1347, which is the Black Death, which 200 million people died, which is 20 crore people have died. It is 1/3 of Europe has died, which is, I think if some of you interested in history, I think we should go and read. You must be having a lot of time during the lockdown. You should go and read Black Death, which is the plague. How plague came into, I think, in my view, that's the first biological war where Genghis Khan threw the bodies of, like, people infected with plague to Constantinople, which is today's Istanbul, and like that killed 200 million people. In spite of that, Europe is where it is today. We had smallpox, which is nothing but Ammai, which killed 56 million. We had Spanish flu, which killed 40 million, 4 people. So, in every other, like, I think, number of people have died is far higher. In COVID-19, not even 4 lakh people have died. Just want to tell you, India, last year only in accidents, in road accidents, 125,000 people have died. 125,000 people have died in road accidents, which means on every day there is at least about 300 people. At least about 30 people who have, 300 people. I think 300 people died in road accident every day. But this is like, this is like 4 lakh in the globe where people have died of corona. But I think, excessive, for me, it is more than pandemic. It is info pandemic, because there is too much of information from TV. There is so much of information from WhatsApp, and it makes a generation fearful. I don't know why. It is not killing as many number of people. There is a concept in engineering called manufacturing defect. If you have a manufacturing defect, you will go. If not today, any day. If you are all right, you will survive. So I think, leave the fear. Nothing is going to happen to the world in terms of corona. The world is going to succeed. The world is going to come back. The reason I'm saying this is, if you look at the crisis of the past in the last 100 years, what has happened after that? People would say, corona nala enak job kedaikuma, corona nala enak enna agum. Nothing is going to happen. Maybe a disturbance for 6 months, 9 months. Great Depression, like when America went into depression, what happened? It came back like in 5 years' time. Okay. The good thing about Great Depression is a lot more women started working, because, like, they said the salaries level have become very low. So men and women started working. Today, the developed countries is measured by number of women working, and I'm very proud to have Dr. Shalini as the principal of women leading us. So I think this could not have happened about 50 years back, but I think if there is one incident like which has made women to work more, it's the Great Depression, like which happened in 1930s. The same happened when World War II. World War II killed close to about 50 million people. It killed about 5 crore people. But good thing, it introduced automation. So then, like I think the growth happened. The China, China cultural revolution, which is like if you can read again, it displaced population. Like I think it killed close to about 3 crore people. But I think like I think 50 years down the line, China is the superpower. Cold War, like I think, which is the communist era, I think they all got killed. All the communist countries have got killed. What happened? Like I think the growth after that. 2008, we had a crisis, like which you may not be knowing. Like all some of you would be 8 years, 9 years old at that point in time. But that was a crisis in which people talked about whether countries will survive. Here we are in 2020, have another crisis, and then I'm sure, like I think we will all survive. So there is nothing to worry about pandemics. To me, it is more than a pandemic. It is more information-related pandemic. Let's all be brave. Let's be resilient, and let's be self-reliant. And I'm sure, like I think, in the ages, in the times to come, we will build a great self-reliant India. Thank you so much.